Hey everyone, good morning. Yeah, it's 11 o'clock on the dot. I just woke up about a little bit ago, and of course, as you saw, I'm drinking my coffee to wake myself up. Um, but yeah, this is a continuation, basically more on AJ Styles winning the WWE Championship, or as I had to put here, WWE title for the second time, and now going on to face Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. Now, I will admit that the reason I had to abruptly end the last live feed that I did is because, yes, my mom had just come home from not just work, but from Bible study. Yeah, my mom, like I said, just had come home from work and just basically come home from Bible study as well. Basically, on Tuesdays, she'll go to work. She'll come back from work. She'll stop at a Starbucks or a Flying J, get a coffee, rest up a little bit, and then she'll go to Bible study at our pastor's house along with others. And then after about an hour or so of that, an hour and a half of that, she'll head home. And basically, what happened is, as I was doing the live feed on that, basically my live stream on that, that's when she decided to put the key in the door, and there you go. Not my door, but the front door, and well, there you go. She ended up coming home, and I had to abruptly end the stream. But anyway, one of the things I was talking about towards the end, and I had just thought about this in the last video, and I'll provide a link down below if you want to check that out. Um, what I had talked about basically was the fact that a lot of people are saying that there are many factors as to why AJ won the championship, why WWE decided to take the belt off Jinder. Some have said that the reason they took the belt off Jinder is because they want to preserve him healthily. In other words, make sure he's healthy enough for the India tour in December, which means he could end up winning the championship back from AJ at the last SmackDown event of the year, which is Clash of the Champions. Now, with that said, I know that's now, with that said, one thing I didn't mention or didn't say in the last, well, actually, I did say in the last video somewhat, I think, was I know that that decision to have Jinder probably win the championship back at Clash of the Champions, it's not going to sit well with people. But the only reason they would do that is to get the belt on him in time for the India tour, and secondly, because if they're still planning to build to Cena and Mahal at Mania, well, there's your reasoning. Um, well, there's your reasoning as well. And as much as we kind of crapped on Jinder as champion, and yeah, the whole Jinder Mahal as champion because we're going to India and we need a strong representation of a champion there. Basically, taking something. Basically, backfired, blew up in WWE's face, blew up in Vince McMahon's face. You know, even though the initial experiment didn't work, you can't tell me WWE is still not determined to try to make the tour of India a hotbed for sports entertainment and professional wrestling, if not the WWE itself. And they could have the tour, and they don't have to have Jinder be champion. If if sending Jinder all the way to India this whole time on that tour, building up this India tour, putting the championship on him initially, was all because of that, and getting some network subscriptions from that area, then come on, we got to know WWE is not going to turn their back on it all of a sudden. And as happy as we are, that we're going to get AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, hopefully, unless they do a bait and switch, which I don't think they would. We got to come to the realization that AJ being champion is not going to last very long this second time around. Yes, I'm happy he's champion. I'm happy, as you saw in the last video, that I'm proud to say that I actually got to meet him. And yeah, as I said in the last video, my head's kind of turned this way, not because I was tired or anything. It's more like I had the expression of like, oh man, I can't. The camera caught me basically at the time I was turning my head. I was going to, kind of turn everything, but I kind of had the reaction of like I was in the ring with someone that had basically done it all for TNA at that time, Impact Wrestling now at that time. So I was just happy to be there, and that place was packed. That place was sold out. So let's put it like that. Um, but anyway, as happy as I am, along with anybody else, that AJ is champion, I think we got to come to the realization that his championship reign is only going to last to maybe the Clash of Champions, which is this time around. Unlike last year was a Raw event, this time around is a SmackDown event. So we got to realize that Clash of Champions is probably where he's going to drop it back to Jinder. And if I'm right, maybe about the if I'm right about the tour dates, or at least the schedule of the India tour, I think the Clash falls right before it. So that would give them plenty of time to get the belt back on him for that India tour. Now, a lot of people are wondering why WWE decided to call an audible here. Um, as some would say, why they decided to call an audible, why they decided to, you know, jump the ship, if you will, and put the belt on AJ in all places, in on edition of SmackDown, and of all places, Manchester, England. Well, one, they know that in Manchester, England, or any um, outside, country that they go to, any um, any other country like England, China, Australia, Japan, you name it, they're always going to get a near sellout crowd. So they knew that if they did the title change here, that they would get a huge reaction. They might have got a huge reaction as well if they did the title change here in the States, but apparently they decided to wait off on it until at least Manchester, so they can have a bigger, better reaction. Because I think they do realize that here in the States, the crowds, they've been coming, but not coming as much as they should to the SmackDown or Raw tapings. So they probably realize, hey, we're going to be in front of a sold out crowd back to back nights in Manchester. Why don't we just put the belt on? Why don't we do the championship match there and put the belt on AJ there? Now, there is no doubt going into that. There was no doubt when this match was announced online that, from a storyline perspective, it had to deal with the fact that Jinder tried to take out AJ after he beat the second of the the second member of the Singh brothers, or the second brother of the Singh brothers. So there's no doubt it came out of that. But there's a lot of factors that play into this. One of several factors that play into this, and a lot of people have discussed this. Was it because he got popped for drugs? Was it because he was injured? Was it because WWE realized that people were crapping on the Survivor Series as a whole, because one of the featured main event matches, if not the main event match, was a joke, was nothing more than a glorified squash match in favor of Brock Lesnar. Who knows? Um, there's a lot of factors that play into it. You know, one of the factors I looked into towards the end of the last video that, like I said earlier, I had to stop abruptly, if you will. One of the main factors there was the fact that was the fact that I believe the reason they took the championship off Jinder and put it on AJ, thus setting up Brock versus AJ at Survivor Series, in my opinion, and I just thought about this in that video, ironically, and you can go back and watch it. I think they did it because it was their retaliation. It was their retaliation. It was their retaliation to what Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan was doing. Well, it was basically their retaliation to what New Japan was doing for Wrestle Kingdom 12. Now, in case you've been living under a rock or anything, and I even talked about this live, one of the matches announced for New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom 12 um, in January, at the beginning of January, one of the matches announced for this event is Kenny Omega defending the IWGP United States Championship against Chris Jericho. That's right. Bullet Club's Kenny Omega, one of the hottest commodities in wrestling today, is defending his championship against Chris Jericho, the first undisputed WWE champion, 6-time world champion, 9-time Intercontinental champion, probably one of the greatest of all time, one of the Triple Crown Grand Slam one of the Triple Crown winners and Grand Slam champions out of the come from the company. And this match between the two was announced for Wrestle Kingdom. Now, of course, obviously Vince McMahon still has some love for Chris. He wished Chris a happy birthday today via Twitter, or at least somebody on his behalf did. So there's still some goodwill between both sides. But there's still some goodwill between both sides. But anyway, if you think WWE isn't paying attention to the non-existent competition, even though they acknowledge their existence on occasions, then you're dead wrong. Because because I guarantee that as soon as this match was announced for Wrestle Kingdom on behalf of New Japan, WWE decided to go in the direction that they did. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and I don't think anybody else's mind, that when WWE announced Mahal against Styles, that like everybody watching this video live, or watching it post live after it's been uploaded, there's no doubt that a lot of people probably figured that this match between Mahal and Styles was being set up to feed Styles to Jinder, to make Jinder look credible, to give him a credible win, make him look incredibly strong. Basically, it was being set up originally in the eyes of a lot of us to make Jinder look credible, if not to make Jinder look like a viable and credible opponent for Brock at Survivor Series. And thus, by doing so, they were going to feed him AJ on a silver platter, or at least that's what we all initially thought. But I almost feel that as soon, maybe it's just me, but I probably know I'm not the only one that thinks this, that as soon as Omega and Jericho was announced for Wrestle Kingdom, the WWE said, hey, we love Chris. We have respect for Chris. He's not on a, full-time contractual basis with us. He can do whatever he wants. But we're not about to even let him and New Japan outshine us. So that's why they decided to come up with Styles winning. So that's why I think at the last moment they decided to have Styles go over Jinder, because by doing so they set up Styles against Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series as their answer and retaliation to New Japan's announcement of Kenny Omega against Chris Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom next year. I understand it's now. I understand. Some people may not think that's a reasoning. Some people may say, "Oh, that's not a reasoning. There's no way they would do it because of that." Yeah. Well, obviously, you don't know WWE very well if you don't think that, because WWE, they're like any company out there, sports entertainment, retail, whatever. You know, they're like any business out there. They're not about to let any kind of competition, whether it's major competition, whether it's small time competition, whatever. They're not about to let their competition get the best of them. They're not about to let that happen. They're not about to let somebody else outshine them. And that's why at Survivor Series, you got the match of Brock and Styles instead of Brock and Jinder. And like I said earlier, a lot of factors play into this. You know, Jinder possibly being injured because of reports that he had kosher tape, as they call it, I think, on his shoulder, and he was wrestling with it on his shoulder, and he was wrestling with it while on live events, and that probably got word to WWE, and WWE probably acknowledged, hey, this guy is hurt. He may not be wearing the kosher tape or anything on television, although he might be underneath the suit. But we didn't see that obviously on Tuesday when he lost the title to AJ. But still, word had to been going around. Obviously, the WWE offices had to see the pictures, had to hear the reports, had to hear his denial. Most importantly, on All Places ESPN. So obviously WWE had to have gotten wind of it finally and said, you know what, Doc, go check out Jinder, see how bad he is, because I think the last thing they want to do is put a less than 100% Jinder Mahal in the ring with a more than 100% Brock Lesnar. So the doctor probably looked at Jinder, probably deemed he's not 100%. He's not ready for someone like Brock, especially in his condition right now. He needs time to heal. So they probably said, you know what? Let's get the. So that probably was the decision to get the belt off Jinder and onto AJ. Now, here's what's funny though. A lot of the decisions, that a lot of the recent changes for Survivor Series, according to numerous reports, have been approved by Vince McMahon, or at least were basically Vince McMahon's idea. Now, we may criticize Vince for being 70 plus years old and not in touch and all that, but the guy is a smart businessman. He wouldn't be a multi-billionaire or millionaire or whatever if he wasn't. And if he came up with these decisions to change certain matchups at Survivor Series to try to make it more successful, I wouldn't put it past him, because like I said, when WWE decided to put the belt on AJ and basically set up a dream matchup of AJ versus Brock at Survivor Series, that was their answer, their retaliation to the announcement of Omega and Jericho. And if Vince, sorry about that, and if Vince had any say in it whatsoever, then that that further proves that if Vince was the one behind the idea to put the belt on AJ and set up this dream matchup, that kind of further shows that even though he loves Chris Jericho and he'll wish him a happy birthday, that he's not about to let even his former undisputed champion his first historical undisputed champion, outclass him, outshine him, with another promotion at their signature event. He's not about to let that happen. Now, now when I hear that Vince had a say in this, or at least he had the final say, or he's the one that decided to do it. Again, like I said, I don't doubt he did because he doesn't like to be outshined by his competition, whether it's small, major, or in your face, whatever. But I don't think he was entirely. But honestly, this is just me. I don't think Vince entirely came up with the idea to get the belt off AJ. I mean, off Jinder and onto AJ after the announcement of Jericho and Omega. No, I think several people went up to Vince because I think, here's my honest truth, I think Vince still wanted to continue with Jinder as champion, but as soon as that announcement was made, and I'm pretty sure they brought this up to Vince, that's when the decision was made to get the belt off AJ. Like, I'm thinking people like Paul Levesque, Triple H, Brian James, Road Dogg, despite how you might feel about him. His own daughter, Stephanie McMahon, and maybe even his son, Shane McMahon, and some people may be close to him. I don't know, maybe Kevin Dunn, perhaps. I seriously doubt it, but still, several people came up to him and probably all said the same thing. Survivor, they probably pointed out a lot of factors. Ticket sales were not good for Survivor Series as far as the Toyota Center in Houston was concerned. Pay-per-view buys at that moment were not good, and viewership might go down because of the fact that nobody wants to see Jinder against Brock. You add all those factors in to someone like a Vince McMahon, with word going around that Jinder is hurt, he's injured, and he's not in any kind of condition, to face someone like Brock. Couple that with the fact that here you have a rival competitor, whether they admit it or not, overseas, that's making their presence well known in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere here, here in the West, here in the Western Hemisphere, in the United States and such. Topple that with that company, that competition, that rival making the announcement that Jericho's taking on Omega at Wrestle Kingdom in one of the feature main events. Combine all that together, and that's pretty much enough for Vince to say, all right, take the belt off Jinder, put it on AJ. We'll make AJ versus Brock for Survivor Series. That'll be our retaliation, our answer to New Japan and what they're doing with Jericho and Omega. And it will give Jinder plenty of time to rest so he can get healed up and probably win the belt back at Clash of Champions, because I still want him as champion at the Indian Tour. And that's probably what's going to happen. Like I said earlier, that's probably what's going to happen. Jinder is probably going to win the belt back in the rematch at Clash of Champions, whether we want to admit it or not. Now, the only thing that could probably change that, the only thing that I think could probably be the only thing that I think could be like a wrench being thrown into that is if Jinder is more injured than people initially thought, and so they have to rewrite their plans, their strategy for Jinder and for AJ probably dropping the belt to someone at Clash of Champions or at the Rumble. And my assumption would be, unless there's more to the story than meets the eye, my assumption is he has to drop the belt to either Owens or Zayn. One of the two have to become champion going into the WrestleMania season, because of the fact that if Jinder is more injured than we think, you need someone that's a little bit more credible than Jinder is to take the belt off AJ at Clash of Champions if they can't do Jinder going over AJ in the rematch. Just checking something there. But yeah, yeah, they got to come up with some kind of backup plan if that's the case. But to me, I think when everybody from Triple H, Stephanie, Shane, and anybody else close to Vince, excuse me, on his inner circle, like let's say Brian James and all them, um, I'm pretty sure when they all mentioned some of the things that I just said, from the fact that Ginger's not 100%, he's no condition to face Brock. People, the sales ticket wise are not doing so well for the event. Pay per view buys aren't doing well. Viewership may be down, and all that. And the fact that New Japan made the announcement of Jericho and Chris, basically making themselves look better and more desirable than the WWE. Basically all that toppled together, I think was enough to basically have them talk Vince into getting the belt off Jinder onto AJ to do the dream match of AJ versus Brock. But I'm pretty sure Vince maybe have agreed to do it on the condition that Jinder gets the belt back at Clash of Champions in time for the India tour and possibly WrestleMania season, so he can drop it to John Cena, who'd be winning his 17th at WrestleMania. That's just an assumption. That's just, in my opinion, an assumption of maybe how the decision was finalized and approved, and finalized, made, and approved, however you see it, by Vince McMahon. Now, like I said in the last video, to me, this overall, when you think about it, like I said, many factors. Like I said, well, basically, like I said in the last video, let me rephrase that. Like I said in the last video, and as I said here, many factors probably led into the decision to get the belt off Jinder and onto AJ. But I think the most determining factor, like I said, and I just brought it up, was New Japan announcing Kenny Omega against Chris Jericho. Think about it. Here you have think about it, one half of that main event match for Wrestle Kingdom involves your first ever undisputed champion, who is also your 6-time champion, the innovator, the founder, the creator of Money in the Bank ladder match, your 9-time Intercontinental champion, your who knows what number he is as far as Triple Crown champions and Grand Slam champions are. Basically, your first ballot Hall of Famer and someone you're close friends with, or at least you have respect for. When you hear that he's the other half of this main event match for New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom show against basically one of the hottest commodities in wrestling, in Kenny Omega, by the way, the WWE recently had under contract several years ago before you decided to let him go. And now, like I said, he's gone on to be not only leader of Bullet Club and leader of the Elite, which is somewhat a Wolfpack version of the Bullet Club, but within Bullet Club, basically more, in my opinion, more basically what the Wolfpack Elite situation should have been in 1999, and when that became a thing. But basically, here's a guy that's now the leader of one of the hottest factions in wrestling. Here's a guy that's basically on fire as far as promos, wrestling ability, match wise, all that. And here's a guy that's potentially going to be going into a feud with somebody else that's been on fire recently that was once part of your company, and Cody Rhodes. So if you're WWE and you see this, you're like, you know what? We can't let this company outshine us. Yeah, their signature event is about a month or two away, but we still can't let them outshine us, especially with us going into our biggest event of the year. Not biggest event, but our biggest event of the fall winter season in Survivor Series, which is the second longest pay-per-view in WWE history. So they realize they can't let themselves be outshined, and that's why I believe the decision was made to put the belt on AJ and have AJ face Brock instead of Jinder. Now, I'm not saying that Jinder and Brock probably wouldn't have been appealing had they built up Jinder properly. Had they built him up properly as champion, had they wrote him competently as a champion, then I think a lot of us would be in total agreement that him facing Brock would have been a good idea. But honestly, it's not. Because I think a lot of us, and WWE knows this, let's be honest, we can crap on them all day for some of the decisions they make. But WWE knows us. They know that we remember that the last time Jinder was in the ring with Brock was not that long ago when Jinder was part of the comedy trio known as 3MB, and he got tossed around along with McIntyre and Slater like a piece of garbage. So fans to go, sorry for the lag there, but so when fans go onto the network or on YouTube and they see that, then they basically find it hard to believe that despite the fact that he may have, built himself up to look better and more genetically, you know, uh, what's the word? More genetically jacked than he was before, whether he's doing it naturally or he's, you know, shooting himself up or whatever. People will still go back and look at something like that from a couple years ago and be like, and they'll be basically asking themselves, WWE wants us to think this guy can have a credible match with Brock? They wouldn't buy it. And again, I'm sure that, along with the fact that he's injured, the fact that no ticket sales are not doing well, but now they are. Pay-per-view buys weren't doing well, now they are. Viewership is probably going to go up on the network for the event. Coupled, add all those situations and topple it on and add, New Japan making the announcement they did, and there is no doubt all those factors played into the decision to put the belt on AJ. Now, as I said, I don't think AJ is going to have the belt for long because I think Vince probably only agreed to do it as long as Jinder gets the belt back at the Clash of Champions, possibly in time for the India tour and in time for WrestleMania season, so that he could drop it to maybe John Cena. But we'll just have to wait and see what they do. Now, again, like I said, this experiment with Jinder could have paid off. There's no doubt. Let's be honest, it could have paid off had they built up Jinder Mahal as a credible champion. Had they not had him lose on many occasions when he was on the Raw brand, and even in his first matchup as a part of the SmackDown Live brand, had they not made him lose and basically a jobber, and while they were both on Raw, basically make him Rusev's, excuse my language here, God, but while they were on Raw, making him Rusev's bitch in the end, had they not done all that with Jinder, then there is no doubt I think a lot of us would have accepted Jinder Mahal better as champion. I mean, yeah, were some of us initially happy with the fact that he became champion? Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of us are like, how many times is someone like a Randy Orton going to hold the WWE Championship and not somebody that should be champion that's never held it? And when Jinder won it, yeah, a lot of us were not happy because from a smart mark perspective, it's like, wait a minute, this guy jobbed for a majority of his career here as part of 3MB, jobbed for a majority of his run on Monday Night Raw, jobbed in his first matchup to, of all people, Sami Zayn, in his first matchup as part of SmackDown, and now we're supposed to take him as a credible champion. That's the only reason I think a lot of people booed him. The fact that he has this win-loss record with more losses than wins, and now he's the champion. And then, like I said earlier, you basically portrayed him before he left Raw to go to SmackDown, or was sent to SmackDown from Raw, as Rusev's bitch. excuse my language, God. So we're supposed to have believed him to be a credible champion after all that. That's why the experiment didn't work. It wasn't because he was Indian, even though he's Canadian. He was a Canadian of India descent. Of India descent. Um, it wasn't because of that. It wasn't because he was playing the foreign bad guy, whatever. It was mostly because here's a guy that was a jobber his entire run, even his first matchup on the brand he became champion of, and now we're supposed to take him seriously as champion. It didn't work. But again, knowing how WWE is and knowing how stubborn Vince McMahon is, he'll only let this happen for a reason. One is to counteract what New Japan is doing with Omega and Jericho by saying, "Hey, look, you guys going to do Jericho and Omega, the dream matchup at Wrestle Kingdom, your WrestleMania of the year? Hey, fine, no problem. Guess what we're doing? We're doing a dream matchup of two former IWGP champions who used to be champions of your company, who used to work for you guys, at our event, Survivor Series, in a few weeks, and people are more invested in that, and people are going to be more invested in that than Omega and Jericho." See, that's the mentality. The mentality is, hey, congrats and everything. I'm putting that dream matchup for your WrestleMania, in this case, Wrestle Kingdom, together for January and all that. But guess what? We got a dream matchup of former IWGP champions, two guys that used to hold your most prestigious championship in your company. We're doing the dream matchup a lot sooner at the Survivors, a lot sooner, and that sooner being the Survivor Series. That's why they basically put the belt on AJ Styles this past Tuesday. Like I said, a lot of factors: injury, maybe to Ginger's injury, sales, for tickets weren't doing well, pay-per-view buys for the event were doing well, and all that. But mostly, like I said at the end of the other video, I think the realization is they did it because of the fact that initially they were going to probably have Mahal go over. That's trying to make him look credible and strong going up against Brock. But as soon as Omega and Jericho was announced for Wrestle Kingdom, that's when the decision was to take the belt off Jinder and put it on AJ, and just put the dream matchup of AJ and Brock at Survivor Series as retaliation and as an answer to Wrestle Kingdom to New Japan making the announcement of Jericho and Omega. And I think anybody watching live knows that. I think they know that. So is it a smart business move as far as, hey, you want to put is smart business move as far as WWE telling the competition, hey, you could do this dream matchup all you want and that's great, but we're going to do a dream matchup of two former champions that used to hold your most prestigious belt, the IWGP World Heavyweight title. We're going to do that dream matchup a lot sooner, and the sooner is going to be Survivor Series in about a week, or at least 2 weeks or something like that. So is it a smart business move? Absolutely. Why? Because it takes all the discussion, all the talk of Omega and Jericho happening at Wrestle Kingdom 12. It takes all that talk, it takes all that discussion, and puts it on WWE and puts it on AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. So in other words, WWE by doing this does exactly what they were hoping for. They take that momentum, that momentum, that trendiness that Omega versus Jericho was making and New Japan was making for Wrestle Kingdom, and they start focusing on them because they're doing a dream matchup a lot sooner than New Japan is with Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles. You can't tell me that's not one of the main, if not the main reason, because it is. It is the main reason, you know. So that's why I think AJ's got the belt. because of that reason. So, yeah, AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar. I think a lot of people have said it best. I think the event is shaping up to be a lot better. It's looking more attractive than initially it was. And because now you got this match happening, you've got whether you like the guy or not, whether you like the guy or you don't. You got John Cena as part of Team Blue. At Survivor Series in the Raw versus SmackDown match. And you probably have other championship matches being changed. And you have other champion versus champion matchups probably being changed over as well as far as this upcoming week goes and this past week. I mean, now you got the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro facing the Usos. You've got a potential six-man dream matchup, if you will, six-man tag team dream matchup within WWE standards of New Day versus The Shield. You probably have you're probably going to have a title change happen a title change or two happen on SmackDown this upcoming week with either Charlotte going over Natalya or Sin Cara going over Baron Corbin and one of them taking the place of the other at Survivor Series. You know, with all this happening and those potential changes on the horizon, Survivor Series is shaping up to look a lot better than it was initially. It's starting to look a lot better than it was initially. Now, what am I trying to say here? Oh, as far as the outcome of what could happen in that matchup with Brock and AJ, I think they could have a good matchup. And I don't think jobbing to Brock's going to hurt AJ. I really don't. I think AJ knows he's probably going to end up jobbing to Brock because they want to make Brock strong. They want to make him look strong going into WrestleMania season. Excuse me. So I don't think losing to Brock is really going to hurt AJ at all. Also, I think there's no doubt that Brock's probably going to go over AJ, but I think it's going to be more of an. I think it's basically going to be more. But honestly, I think when you compare the two, I think a lot of people will be in initial agreement that this is a more viable, believable matchup than Jinder and Brock was going to be. You know, it's a more viable, unbelievable matchup because at least, even though he is smaller, he's not as strong, he's not as powerful as Brock, you still can make a case for AJ bringing the fight more so than Jinder would have on his own against Brock Lesnar. Heck, even Paul Heyman, I think through Heyman Hustle's Twitter account, even acknowledged that, hey, now the interest is peaked. And you know what? Heyman's burial of Jinder as champion, I don't think really helped Jinder's chances of keeping the belt up till Survivor Series either. Because one of the things a lot of people say about Paul Heyman is he has some influence in the back. And honestly, maybe Brock just didn't feel just very much into this match. Maybe Brock was going to pull out of the Survivor Series. Who knows? We don't really know. So for them to change it up, I was just looking at something over there. For them to change it up the way they did, I think they realized that even Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman were not interested in a Brock versus Jinder match for Survivor Series. So we'll just have to wait and see what WWE decides to do after Survivor Series. But like I said, as far as we know, in my opinion, a lot of factors could have played into it, the injuries and all that. But I think initially, in the end, when New Japan made that announcement that Jericho was going to face Omega, this to me was WWE's retaliation. I really do. I think also in a sense, whether I think anybody wants to believe it or not, I think it's also the retaliation to even their NXT brand. Because you think WWE is going to, especially Vince McMahon's going to let Triple H, his own son-in-law, outshine him with the return of War Games? Absolutely not. Two, they may not have a War Games match the next night, but you know what? He's not about to let um, his son-in-law outshine him, and that's probably why he also decided. That's why he probably also agreed to let the title change happen as well. So, but I think besides that, I think the overall reason was Jericho and Omega because, like I said, now they take all that momentum, all that trendiness, and all that the New Japan was making, Jericho and Omega was making, and now they focus, and now they bring it over to their side, and it's being focused more so on AJ versus Brock Survivor Series. So, really, that's all I can really say about the whole AJ versus Brock Lesnar match at Survivor Series. You know, AJ winning the championship and now facing Brock at Survivor Series. Is it a smart business move to get more pay-per-view buys and more ticket sales happening for the event? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also the fact that WWE, someone may have, you know what, I didn't, I mentioned this in the last video and I'll mention it again. I think another reason is because when the spontaneous decision was made to replace Bray Wyatt with AJ Styles at TLC against Finn Balor in the battle of the two former Bullet Club members, and the reaction that live crowd gave that matchup, and I'm sure the reaction WWE got online because of this decision, that also played into a factor as well. Like, hey, fans like that, well, let's give it to them again. So you couple that with New Japan making the decision, making the announcement they did, along with the other stuff I've mentioned, then that's pretty much enough for anybody, whether you're Vince McMahon, you're Stephanie McMahon, you're Triple H, you're Shane McMahon, whoever, to say, you know what? Let's go AJ Brock. Let's get the belt off Jinder. Let's give him time to heal. We can get the belt back on him later on, maybe in time for the India tour, whatever. Maybe in time for Mania season, whatever. But for right now, let's get the belt off him, put it on AJ, and go from there because people are going to want to see that more so because people are going to enjoy probably seeing that more so than our original plan. Again, a lot of factors may have played into it. So, we'll just have to, hopefully down the line, we'll find out the answer. Because even Dave Meltzer is trying to speculate. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez and everybody's trying to speculate what was the real legit reason. And I think a lot of us probably know several of the real legit reasons out there. One, he was injured. Maybe he got popped. I don't think so. But he's injured, Jinder Mahal, that is. But also two other determining factors. One, they probably was reminded of the spontaneous reaction and positive reaction that the announcement of AJ Styles versus Finn Balor at TLC got, especially the reaction, before, during, and after that matchup between the two. As well as topped with the fact of, as well as you add on the fact that New Japan made the announcement they did, it's going to be enough for WWE to want to be swayed, especially Vince McMahon, to be swayed into going in this direction. So, to me, I'll give WWE a lot of credit. They made the right move, and they made the right move because obviously now people are reacting more positively. Ticket sales for the Toyota Centers for Survivor Series at the Toyota Center in Houston are selling out more. Pay-per-view buys pay-per-view buys are probably going up a lot more, and the network viewership is probably going to go up a lot more as well. So kudos to them for that. The only negative about this in the end is Jinder Mahal is probably going to get the belt back at Clash of Champions in time for the India tour, even though that's a Raw sponsored event, even though it's a Raw exclusive tour. That's probably what's going to happen at the end of this is AJ is probably going to drop the belt back to Jinder at the Clash of Champions. Not just not just in time for the India tour, but also probably in time for Mania season, where he'll probably drop it to Cena for Cena's 17th. So that's all I'm going to say, folks. You all let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear from you guys. Uh, Thank you all for watching live. Thank you all for watching post live after it's already been uploaded. But let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I'm out.